Welcome to Relationships on Reddit. In this series, we look at posts on Reddit. We'll check out some of the responses. I'll provide some coaching questions for exploration, as I would for a client who is in the situation. Then finally, I'll provide my commentary at the end of just being myself, unfiltered and unadulterated. Hi, I'm Janelle, the relationship coach behind The Successful Invisible. Check out my links below if you're interested in working with me for group coaching or one-on-one coaching. The goal of exploring these posts is to have you become more discerning, intentional, and successful in your dating and relationships. Let's get into this Reddit post about someone inviting a person to their home that they've just met online for a first date. All right, this post comes from the Dating Advice Reddit thread or Reddit sub, and it's titled, "Why Do Men Think Inviting a Girl Over is a Good Idea for a First Date?" This person writes, "I matched with a guy on Bumble, and when I asked him about his intentions, he mentioned he was seeking something serious. However, he suggested a movie date, air quotes, at his place just because he's apparently tired and wanted a chill plan for our first date, which gave me the impression he might expect physical intimacy." All right, let's get into some of the responses. So Trinikins 1416 says, "I get this one a lot and I immediately decline and move on. A few times I have asked to do something else and I get called a picky bitch. Like, the fuck? I'd rather be in public with a complete stranger than go to their home. You could have a serial killer, sex trafficker, rapist, etc. I could rob you, murder you, rape you, etc., etc. Why would anyone in their right mind ever meet a complete stranger anywhere but a public area?" Then Puzzle-Headed Fall 376 says, "100% this. Never trust a man who refuses to meet you in public the first time. You have to keep yourself safe. Hold off on the chilling until you know and trust him more. Then You've Looked Better says, "Not to mention, it's like extremely lazy. They're never going to put in any effort to actually plan something and get to know you." Baby Bubbless says, "Short answer, they don't want to spend money and probably hope the night ends in sex. Short, sweet, plain and simple. Yeah, it's not a good sign." Few Employment 9024 says, "No one who is looking for someone serious invites someone over for the first date. We're grown here. Of course not." Norwegian Dogo says, "He might want something serious, but not with you. Actions speak louder than words. Inviting someone over directly as a first date is what you do when you want casual sex. Either way, you should never agree to such a date. Always meet in public first for safety reasons." And based upon Norwegian Dogo's icon with the beard, I'm going to surmise this is actually a man who's giving this feedback. Jaguar Zero, another icon based upon me looking at it, I think it's also a man because it's a bearded icon. He says, "In my opinion, even if he isn't trying to get in your pants," he probably is, in parentheses, "that is at the very least low effort. A coffee date is easy for someone who doesn't want to invest a ton of money and energy. You're dating for yourself, right? Set the standard by which you'd like people to treat you. If this kind of thing irks you, don't do it." Then the OP, outro his says, "I figured this act of his gave me the ick, honestly. And the fact that he can't man up and say his true intentions annoyed me even more." Then Anam Kara commented, "It's weird for a first date, in my opinion, but if the guy is cooking and stuff, I don't see it as low effort necessarily." Moving on, we're going to jump into a segment that I like to call Green Flags and Red Flags. We basically look at the post that I just read through, and from a coaching perspective, I'm going to identify some of the green flags and the red flags to help you become a more informed and better person to date, and better when you go out on your own dating exploits and adventures to make wiser decisions. All right, I like to start off on a positive note. So we're going to start off with some green flags. There weren't a whole lot of them, but in fairness, I wanted to bring them up. So the first one was clear communication of intentions. So the person OP was corresponding with did say that they were looking for something serious. Now, that was clearly communicated. However, there's a disconnect between their words and then their actions of inviting someone over on a first date they've never met to chill, which gives every indication of sex, desire for intimacy, and if things go left, OP would be to blame for going over a strange man's house. So, yes, the person they were communicating with said clearly they were looking for something serious, but their actions proved to be a huge disconnect in alignment with what they're saying. The second potential green flag, and this is a potential green flag, is if the person that OP is corresponding with, this guy on Bumble, is open and has flexibility in their planning. If it's expressed to them that OP is not comfortable coming to their house on a first date and they don't know him from Adam's house cat, that, she would suggest going someplace different, someplace local, maybe not far, maybe not too expensive, that the man on the other end would be receptive to that. That is a potential green flag. So that's not a solid green flag, but it's a potential green flag. And then the third green flag is that the man she was corresponding with, he was open about his personal feelings. He did say that he was tired and he prefers a chill plan. I think that's about the most honest thing he conveyed, where his actions lined up with his words. And knowing that that's how he feels up front is going to be very important for OP to assess if she wants to even entertain further communication with this guy. Now on to my favorite part, the red flags. There were a whole heap. There were a lot of them. The first one is, we're grown. Who is suggesting that a woman come over their place for a first date? I don't believe that any man above 21 is that tone deaf to the environment that we're living in, the amount of sexual assault that occurs, the amount of, danger many women feel that they are in, as well as looking at statistics about domestic violence and things like this, when he suggested that OP come over his house. So that to me was a huge red flag. She's either dealing with someone who's immature, completely unaware, potentially dangerous. That's just not, it doesn't make sense. Red flag number 2, there's a mismatch between stated intentions and actions. And I mentioned this in the green flags. Okay, he said he wanted something serious with OP when they were messaging on Bumble, but his actions are clearly stating, sit on a dick energy, as I like to call it. Low effort, no investment of time, money, energy, anything is what the man on the other end of the message is telling OP. Like, yeah, come over, kick it and chill, and being in a private and intimate space. This leads to red flag number 3. There was a lack of consideration for comfort and safety. I don't know any men who would make this suggestion without it intentionally being a prelude or invitation, an unspoken invitation for sex. They know what they're doing. He knows what he's doing. I don't think this was made in error, and just was a lack of consideration about how safe a woman would feel doing this, and lack of how comfortable she would feel just going over some strange dude's house for a first date. Number 4 red flag is that there's possible pressure, and this is an implied red flag if OP would choose to go forward. There is going to be a pressure for physical intimacy. And as I said earlier, there's also going to be blame placed, because that is how a patriarchal society works. Women are held accountable for men's poor behavior. If she would make the very unwise decision to go over this man's house, there's going to be, at a minimum, a pressure and an expectation on her for sex. On top of it being a safety concern. Red flag number 5, minimal effort. someone saying just come over my house is no effort. It's not even low effort. It's no effort. It's literally, I don't have to do anything and I expect this person to come to me. And then in the best case scenario, if this guy is not, weird, dangerous, crazy, etc., and she were to decide to come over and they say even they had a genuinely good time, it's also like no effort. He didn't have to do anything. This leads to, for me, red flag number 6. You start out that sets the foundations of a relationship. So say best case scenario, she would choose to go over this guy's house. They have a great time, etc. That is setting the foundation of him having to put minimal effort into any interaction with her to then have her around, then to have access to her energy. No money was spent, no time was spent, no thought was, poured into just inviting her over. Red flag number 7, too much of a quick move into private spaces. Dating, especially in this day and age, should be very thoughtful on everyone's part. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You need to keep your private, safe space. You need to keep your person safe for men and women. And then if you're automatically just jumping to a private space and for the first meeting without understanding that there needs to be a mutual level of comfort as well as a mutual level of respect and consideration for safety, it never sets up that this is really dating. This feels very juvenile and immature when you start out this way. So too many red flags for OP to seriously consider this offer. Now we're moving on to some coaching questions. These are the type of questions that I would ask in a session, during a coaching session with a client who is experiencing a similar situation to what I described in the Reddit post in their own dating lives. The purpose of these questions is to better inform you about your decisions in dating, gain more self-awareness, gain more awareness of other people's circumstances, and be prepared to pivot, move, and make wiser decisions in your own dating lives. Question 1. What feelings might arise from the suggestion of a movie date at someone's place for a first meeting? And how do these feelings align with personal boundaries and expectations for a first date? For me, this suggestion just seems completely disrespectful, and it's a man who has no real interest in me, if someone were to say that to me, whether it's on a dating app or in real life. Though, sidebar, I don't think most men would be bold enough to suggest this in a real life setting. I could be wrong. In my personal experience, most men aren't that bold, but on a dating app, absolutely. And this completely doesn't align with my personal set of boundaries and expectations. I wouldn't allow someone access to my personal space that I have a very casual relationship with. That's romantic, platonic, social, etc. But especially romantic, you have to be very mindful of that overall in this day and age for your own peace and your own safety and your own comfort. So this suggestion to me just feels shitty and grimy, and he would get blocked. Question 2. How can one communicate comfort levels and preferences to someone met on a dating platform, especially when their suggestions don't align with expected norms? This is a great question because it really puts the ball in women's court to start enforcing boundaries early. So for me, if I was chatting with somebody on a dating app and they, we'd gone back and forth a few times and corresponding, and it seemed like there was a vibe there and mutual attraction, etc., and they suggested that, I would tell them I'm not comfortable with that. I'm a very straightforward person. As I've gotten older, I've learned, of course, more tact. I've never been blunt, rude, or vulgar, but I'm very comfortable telling someone up front, hey, that doesn't work for me. I'm very uncomfortable with that. That's not safe. How they would respond would determine if we would move forward with any communication or not. If they would say, oh, okay, didn't know, or didn't really consider that, which is kind of a lie. That's just a test that they, in my opinion, that they tried early on and failed. But they're genuinely interested in me, and then we would have that conversation. If they came back with something rude, vulgar, or disrespectful, I would just block them. dating platforms, as obnoxious as they are in a lot of ways, they do put a lot of power and control in the user's hands. It's much safer, of course, to block online than to reject a man in real life. And in this case, I would state my boundary and what I was comfortable with up front so they at least know, because I would also want to consider, hey, maybe this person, this man I'm talking to, is used to offering such low and minimal effort because men do what women allow them to do. And thinking that way, maybe he has dealt with women that accepted this. So I need to tell him I don't accept this. And if he's interested, he will live up or meet my standard. It's that simple. Question 3. When considering a first date, what are some alternative plans that would foster a sense of comfort and respect? And how can these be proposed to a match? Okay, what I would do is say, no, I'm not comfortable. To answer question 2, I'm not comfortable coming over your home. I don't know you. That's not safe. But here are some things that I would be open and admittable to. And for me, I'm a fan of a certain level of variety. So I would name maybe some restaurant choices, some activity choices, more so like lighthearted, fun activities, but structured activities to go to, going maybe even some cultural activities, but still more on the lighter side, not like theater or opera, but more like, hey, let's go to this art museum, this historical museum, this display, whatever. Depending on the city you're in and the time of year, there's likely more activities going on when it's warmer outside, wherever you're at. So suggest any of those that may be relevant and going on, at the time, based upon me talking to this person. Even if it's like the first communication, I would propose maybe 4 or 5 activities, including, it could be getting together for a brunch. It could be dinner, so a meal activity, a cultural activity, a fun activity. I would give them options of things that I am open to doing. Twofold. A, so they have an idea of my standard in the things I like. And B, to get them kind of thinking about, okay, I kind of see her style. You know what I mean? So it's a twofold thing when you kind of introduce a couple of options and not pigeonhole them into choosing one thing. And that's the route I would take. Question 4. Where is the line drawn between being open to new experiences and maintaining personal safety and boundaries in the context of online dating? For me, that boundary is the same. Whether I meet a man in real life or through a dating app, I am going to keep my safety very much at the forefront of my mind. Even if I get an inkling that something isn't safe, I would say that up front. This doesn't feel safe to me. I don't know you well enough to do this activity. An example of that would be a water activity, right? Not like going to a water theme park with a person that you're dating, but going out on the water, meaning being away from land and being on a boat with them or something, and you don't know them on say you're dating, especially somebody with some money or they have a friend with money. That would not be an activity that I engaged in until I got a fairly good sense of this person, had been around them for quite a long time, quite a while, and had a feeling of safety and security. But that would require me to really tap in and listen to my intuition about this person, really hear what the person is saying, understand how they react, understand how they're built, what's their temperament like, what their personality like. So every woman's line is going to be different, but it's important, regardless of if you're more lenient on this or more strict, you are really tapping into your intuition and making accurate character assessments of the person during your time of engagement with them. Question 5. How can the intentions of someone met online be assessed, especially when actions or suggestions seem to contradict stated dating goals? For me, that's a simple one. As soon as your words and your actions contradict and we haven't even, really crossed paths yet, I already have a sense of you. I might send one, as I said, one additional message to say, hey, I'm not comfortable. Here are some suggestions, pertaining to this post and situation. But that's already giving me a view of you. If nothing else, I'm getting the vibe that you don't want to put effort in. A man doesn't want to put effort into dating. I'm getting the vibe of laziness. And people live up to or down to whatever parameter or bar that you set. So for me, that initial invitation would give me vibes of low effort man and lazy man. And you all read my blog post about that type of men. One of the types of men you should avoid is a man who's a low effort man. Like I said, would send one additional message just to feel him out, because I also want to consider that he has been allowed to get away with this behavior with the caliber of women he's used to dating. And maybe I'm different. Maybe I am the first woman who really said that's not acceptable. Me coming over your house on a first date so we can chill. That's not a date, And so I would want to weigh that a little bit, and that's why I would send one additional message. But for the most part, that gives me the idea at minimum that this man is very lazy in his dating life and the efforts he puts in to finding a partner. Now let's jump into a section that is just my thoughts. I want to give you my unadulterated feedback on this. I answered the questions in the last section, but definitely just to go a little more into this particular area and some kind of words of wisdom for the ladies out here who are in these dating streets, especially on these apps, trying to really navigate and do the best and safest thing for themselves. Oh my goodness. I would say a situation like this is one of the prime reasons that I've taken a step back from dating apps and much prefer doing a lot of connecting and networking and mingling and meeting people in real life. It's suggestions like this that are more common than people realize. Now, do I think all the men who say these things are crazy or even seeking sex from a woman? Not necessarily. I don't think all men are bad in any way, shape, or form. However, what dating apps allow a person to do versus meeting in real life is to put forth less effort. It takes effort to get dressed and go out to an event and go to, a meetup group with people who have aligned interest, or go to a networking event, or go to a high-end happy hour at a 5-star hotel or, a 5-star restaurant or something like that. It takes effort. So dating apps allow you anonymity and the ability to be lazy. Some of this laziness is unconscious. I believe it's very unwise for a woman to ever put herself in a situation like this. Every woman is different. Me personally, I would shut it down and not do it. The bigger lesson here is that dating apps have been a way for a lot of men to be lazy, inconsiderate, not really do a lot to meet, court, and date a woman, because courtship, I don't think a lot of men even know the meaning of it today. And I'll definitely do a video on that. But it allows people to put forth minimum effort, because he could be sending that same message to 10 women, where when you're meeting in real life settings, in real face-to-face settings, where you've had to put the effort in to basically clear your schedule for that time, then you've had to put the effort in to your hygiene and the way you present yourself, and if you're a woman, into your makeup and to your clothes. Like, I want the person who puts forth the effort up front by even showing up at these events and these types of places. It's so important to be able to have that face-to-face contact early, especially the first time meeting, because you can pick up a lot of different vibes very early if you're really tapped in and you're paying attention to your intuition. So if he seems a little off from the beginning, or seems angry, or seems malicious in any way, where my safety would be, in question, I'm a lot more able to tell that in a face-to-face real life situation and meeting environment versus someone just messaging me through a dating app. Dating apps can be used in a way that's beneficial for women, but I believe most men use them as a way to put forth the least amount of effort. And then is Bumble the one where women have to reach out first to men? That compounds if that's the app, and that's the one that the woman in the post is using as Bumble, if that's the way that app works, that puts another layer of non-work, non-expectation, non-effort on men. In a society where so many men are struggling with their identity and gender roles and, all these things and sensitivity to their gender identity, it's not wise to further take that ability away from them to pursue women. I don't mean any predatory sense of the word. I mean for them to say, I think she's attractive. Let me go up to her and ask her out. I like in real life situations because it requires effort to even be there. Of course, upscale, nice. In real life situations, it requires effort to even be in the building. Then it requires more effort to go forth and mingle and start talking to people, to where then you ask them out. You find you're talking to somebody, you like their vibe, and you ask them out. Also gives you the ability to start assessing somebody's vibe up front in the moment, whereas messaging on apps grants somebody that anonymity, and it's easy to say the right words so someone doesn't see maybe things that they need to concern themselves with. All in all, don't think dating apps are bad, but to use them in a way that's beneficial for any woman, it's going to take being very intentional, and also cutting people off quick. In this situation, as I said with the questions, what I would do is give this person one more response, and depending upon how they responded back, I would block them. Or if they responded in alignment to something that I'm comfortable with and meets my standard, I would, move forward with them on a first date in a public location. Now, another thing about that type of situation, it's a little harder to ask up front. And this is a question I've asked up front when I've been asked out in real life, upon first meeting. What are your expectations around payment? Some women wouldn't be comfortable typing that. Do you expect to go Dutch on a first date, or do you, 50-50, or do you expect to pay for the first date? That's important to me as well. Any man who wants to go 50-50 on a first date, once again, wants to put forth minimal effort. A low effort man is a nightmare and should not be entertained in any way, shape, or form. So asking that question in a real life setting is a lot easier, in my experience, than typing that online and messaging somebody back. So this is just a matter of women doing what they're comfortable with, but also being in tune with their intuition, having some standards and boundaries about what they tolerate, especially in the first stages of courtship, and moving on from there. Thank you for joining me today for this episode of Relationships on Reddit. Watch this video again. Answer the question several times. It's okay. Let me know your thoughts around my thoughts on some of the questions as well. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The more we can have these conversations amongst ourselves, with one another, with other women, the more we can gain the insights we need to gain to date in a more intentional manner and in a safer, more effective manner. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, check out the links below in the description box. Also, check out my podcast, The Successful Invisible, next season, publishing soon on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Until next time, this is your relationship coach, Jane L, signing off.